guys are fighting, everything is gonna be the same, right? I'm taking my feet, I'm trying to hide them into the gap between his heels and his hamstrings. I'm trying to take my chest low, so below his chest. So I'm trying to work my way up gradually. As I'm doing this, my knees are flaring, my hips are dropping down, and I'm walking both of these underhooks. So understand, I'm here in this position, really driving into his chest, and I'm walking up. As I'm walking up, I'm meeting more and more tension the higher I get. These hands start to press towards my collarbones. I want to find a way, like I said before, to undercut his head. So I start to stagger in one direction, and it starts to lift the head up. So as my head comes diagonally, I can get here to wrist. If I can get wrist to wrist, ideally I would get like a tricep. That's gonna bring his arms as tight to his head as possible. But from here, I have a wedge that's already driven under his head. So as I go to slide up, my elbows can momentarily take the weight, my knees slide up almost simultaneously, and my feet cup the hips. If he makes a motion to bump right here, I can drive my heels into his hips, and I also have a wedge under his head. It dissipates all of his progress. When I'm ready, I rock to his side. As I rock to his side, he starts to come up. I can drive off of his right hip, and I can advance my knee in the same fashion that we had done previously. Once my knee is here, I don't stop. I don't release this tension. I pull up. As I pull up, I make this semicircular motion with my heel, and then I drive my heel and my knee together. It's from this point that I release the head and I come through to elbow, hand towards the hip pocket. Notice both of his shoulders are off the mat. So same concept that we would talk about from a side control. If I can control his elbows, his shoulders from the mat, it's very hard for him to generate any motion to bump me off or to create space. So from here, my head is already forward. He's fighting to try to keep his arms controlled. So he's probably trying to grab his bicep. He's probably trying to make a connection down towards his forehead. I just punch the gap. I go elbow past his, I walk it through, and then I pull back across my hip. Once it's across my hip, I lean into it to further trap it. Notice that my leg is still wedging his shoulder. I haven't postured up. I haven't given him any space to try to drive his elbows back towards the mat. And it's on this angle out here where I feel the heaviest. I can start to raise up. My knee is gonna drive across his jawline, and I pry across. As I need to, I can drive down towards my knee, and I can slide up to control the wrist, and then I hip in. I'm already there with a good fulcrum, and I'm at the end of the lever with my elbow. So again, when you guys are working, consider trying to get wrist to wrist versus having your hands separate. So again, when you guys are fighting, we're here, so wide knees, heels raised towards his hamstrings. I walk, walk, walk. As I start to meet this tension, I look to undercut his head. If I can get wrist to wrist, I can really use my elbows to help adjust in this process. But when I'm going, I'm raising one, I'm sliding, and then I'm rocking, getting him off of his side here, and then I'm rotating my foot under. The more I drive, the better the wedge I create, the less work I have to do. Once I go to punch through, the angle is much better. Pulling him across, leaning, and then I'm driving this knee to control the direction of the head as I slide up. Okay, guys, so in this position right here, you guys have all seen that we can come through and we can leave the arms, we can come back across. But if I'm struggling for whatever reason, there's a variety of reasons why this can happen, but I still manage to get the initial arm connected and I'm struggling to isolate. I can create an angle wider out towards his legs by taking this active post, like I said, as an extension of my knee. So I come out and away, I begin to pry off of my hip pocket. If I still haven't separated his hands, I'm likely not going to be able to do so just by bringing my knee up. Okay, so this is contrary to what I told you early in the week, but I have this ability to step over. If I stay flared when I step over, I'm going to get sat back regardless because he can drive his feet on an angle and he can bump. I want to try to avoid this. So come back. So if he were to move his feet off to this left side here and then bump, I get sat back. I really don't want this to happen because then this is a fight that he can potentially win. There's a gap for him to slip that hand behind my knee. So when I come up here, in this scenario, as I'm leaning, I'm gonna take my heel. As soon as it surpasses his head, I'm gonna begin to back heel and curl. The pressure of back heeling, my hamstring driving, everything getting pinched there, along with the flare here, allows me to come up and collect the elbow with my hip and the wrist with my my own arm. And then as I'm here, I just drive in, everything is pretty much the same. So here again, when you guys come up, we've driven from the double unders, we have this wrist connection where we slide up, we pull him into our lap, we make the adjustment, and we come through elbow to elbow. If he makes a really strong connection here, I don't feel like I'm able to get the isolation that I want. I adjust my angle by taking my active post closer to the hip. As I come and I lean, I step over, but I don't stay here. Immediately, I curl my heel back as close to my tailbone as I can. I stay postured up. I flare the elbow. Now I've collected his wrist. I begin to drive in. You should still be able to finish in that position from the top side. There's no reason why we should have to sit, and if we were to get bumped, nothing changes. You'd still roll over the left shoulder, assuming that you're on that left side.